Originally, today's review was going to be for the Doomslayer, a character that, surprisingly, makes a lot of sense as an SRB2 character. That'll have to wait until next time though, because as I was going to download him, I saw Shanon's new mod, Pterabyte. Shanon is the creator who made Penguinator, so clearly has a particular type of character they want to make, and as Pterabyte is easily one of the most annoying enemies in SRB2, I felt inclined to see what the mod was like. I assumed they'd be a quick and easy mod to cover, but they're actually really interesting, and I'm not sure how intentional that is. Let me explain. We've all seen how the Pterabyte enemies in Red Volcano Zone act, so I'm sure that you, the viewer, are already pretty confident in your assumptions about how Pterabyte plays. Yes, they have extremely poor ground mobility, read, none at all, offset by incredible aerial mobility. Between the fact that both bandits and their playstyles being defined by top class aerial movement, Pterabyte and Robo actually have a lot of similarities. I didn't plan on doing this, two extremely similar characters back to back is entirely coincidental. There are a few subtle changes that set them apart however. While it is true that Robo has poor grounded options, they at least have the ability to move at all, whereas Pterabyte will simply sit and shout to the opponent to jump and continue flying. And whereas Robo was still somewhat vulnerable in the air to being knocked back down, whether that be because the player simply let go of jump or because an enemy hit them, Pterabyte can continue to hover indefinitely, even after getting hit. Finally, while Pterabyte does have a slower ascension and descension speed, they have a much greater speedrun potential than Robo due to their custom one ability, Rush. Rush is a self-explanatory ability, a massive speed boost that ends after hitting a wall, the floor, or upon being damaged. But this is what Pterabyte's entire playstyle seems to be built upon, although this does start to get into the parts where I can't quite tell how intentional some decisions here are. Pterabyte has a few extra abilities and quirks I do want to mention before we start dissecting their intended strategies though. Firstly, they can destroy both Spikes and Knuckles' walls, and while the latter works perfectly fine, the former is a little odd. The descriptions of the mod on the SRB2 forum say that Spikes cannot be destroyed in Rush, but for all intents and purposes, it seems you can? I mean, look at this. It sort of looks like I'm destroying Spikes while in Rush. Then there's the unique way that Pterabyte can attack enemies and monitors. Everyone knows about the Pterabyte's habit of swooping down on you and dropping you in the nearest lava pool, and that has been faithfully reproduced here. Pterabyte can only damage objects by swooping from above, although Rush can apparently destroy them from any angle, but that doesn't work for me, and I simply take damage. Another oddity. Even against bosses, attacking from above isn't particularly consistent, oftentimes still leading to you taking damage, especially to bosses who move a lot in opportunity phases. This makes me assume Shanon intended for players to avoid spending time destroying monitors or attacking enemies, further leading to muddled clues about whether this inconsistency was intentional or not. Finally, Pterabyte just does not play nice with momentum altering props. The mace spins in Castle Eggman will throw you in completely unpredictable directions, sometimes even on axes they don't face, and springs aren't much better. Watch what happens as I hit these springs in Greenflower Mountain. Regardless of the direction faced, they simply set your momentum to an exactly horizontal axis and call it a day. While everything else can be considered vaguely intentional, I think it's safe to say that this is just a case of the character breaking aspects of the game, likely due to the radically overhauled movement. All in all, it appears clear that Pterabyte is designed to facilitate you reaching blazing speeds, with the requirement of careful routing beforehand. Rush is extremely powerful, essentially meaning you can completely ignore aspects of normal speedrunning like speed sneakers, but it can be dropped out of upon hitting walls or ascending and descending for too long. Combine that with inconsistent at best damage and the inability to walk on the ground or use springs, and it seems like Pterabyte wants you to choose a route through the level that utilizes the absolute minimal amount of level interaction. You don't want to touch springs, you don't want to destroy enemies or monitors, and you definitely do not want to touch the floor. It's almost like you want to set up the level in your mind as if it had no gimmicks, where the best path is simply the one with the loosest corners and least vertical movement. And honestly, it's pretty fun to play SRB2 this way, even if, again, I can't tell how intentional this design is. like Penguinator, Pterabyte uses rip sprites from vanilla SRB2. You'd have to be pretty stupid to make a mod based off the Pterabyte, and then decide the pre-existing sprites don't work well enough and new ones need to be made. Criticism can still be levelled at some other things though, like lackluster animations and some fairly amateur extra features. Pterabyte only really look like they can do the iconic dive bomb swoop if you are rushing while descending, as otherwise, you awkwardly just drop without any movement. Same thing happens with ascending, so I feel even just having the swoop sprites while moving up and down could make it feel more natural, and you could make descending while rushing more dynamic by playing their iconic Sprites, which is currently absent. Rushing could also generate a trail behind you, because at the moment, while the speed increase is noticeable, it still doesn't feel overly dynamic. In terms of additional sprites created, I like their signpost. I think Happy Pterabyte looks quite cute. I don't particularly like their character select icon though. Between the huge box and the off-model appearance, I feel it can still be improved. Overall, Pterabyte is pretty fun to play as, and an oddly unique character. Far more interesting than I originally assumed. They have a playstyle quite distinct from all the other characters that fall under the Infinite Flight umbrella. Egg Robo, Egg Pack, Eggette, okay, just most egg people. It can feel a little stiff and unnatural, and it certainly doesn't feel absolutely intentional, especially when taking into consideration the number of glitches Pterabyte causes, but it's still absolutely playable. I think a 6 out of 10 is justifiable. Hope you enjoyed the video, and ciao.